I'll confess that I've been a little afraid to suggest what I'm going to suggest. I'm more afraid not to. Can we begin our crusade, joined together in a moment of silent prayer? God bless America. Thank you.
I talked to the people from New York
Its
State.
ability to act,
I
tempered by
realized the
prudence,
need for money
and its willingness
to
to
deal
do
with this
good.
problem.
God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America.
God bless you. And
God bless
America.
America.
Thank you. Good night. God bless America.
No pensábamos grabar nada en Boston, pero nos ha sobrevenido un hecho aterrador. En la ciudad todo cierra a las 2 de la madrugada. Bares, discotecas, si es que las hay. Está todo cerrado y estamos en el muelle. Y hemos pensado que es un buen momento para explicar qué vamos a hacer en Estados Unidos. En primer lugar, nos vamos a ir a Brooklyn, a Bed-Stuy concretamente, y vamos a hablar con Fury. Fury es una persona que lleva años en un proyecto que pretende trasladar el arte desde las cárceles a galerías, como la que vamos a visitar, para ver cómo los reclusos también son capaces de producir ese arte, ¿no? De expresarse, ya sea en forma de denuncia o meramente simbólica, estética. Con él también vamos a hablar de toda la esquizofrenia punitiva, de toda la industria del castigo, en la que se sedimenta buena parte de la economía de Estados Unidos. Recordemos que es el país sobre el que hay datos que más reclusos tiene en proporción a su población. Concretamente, alrededor del 1% de la población de Estados Unidos está actualmente en las cárceles. Y también hay un dato muy importante que refleja la segregación que se produce también en esos centros penitenciarios. Ahora mismo hay más reclusos de raza negra que esclavos en el siglo XVIII, así como suena. Son las 4 de la mañana, esto es Boston, esto es Derecho de Resistencia. Vamos a pegar una vuelta por la ciudad, a ver si nos da alguna sorpresa, a ver si hay algún basement abierto. Como se anunció en Boston, estamos en la frontera entre Bushwick y Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. Estamos con Fury Young. Es la persona que encabeza un proyecto que aglutina a personas presas que quieren expresarse, que quieren denunciar su situación a través del arte. En este caso, mañana tenemos una galería inicial cuyo nombre es Scaping Time, muy gráficamente, de lo que uno puede hacer en prisión. Y también él está inmerso en un proyecto en el cual es la cabeza visible, que se llama Jim Crow. Fury Young, nice to meet you.
Me too.
Thanks for talking with us, talking with Derecho de Resistencia. Okay, what can we see tomorrow in Scaping Time? What kind of project are you involved?
Tomorrow is a art show, and all of the artwork is from people in prison around America, lots of different states, men and women, federal prisons, state prisons, maybe a private prison, I don't know. And I do a lot of work with people in prison. Most of it is music. You mentioned Die Jim Crow, that's the name of this album that I'm producing. But in addition to the music stuff, I also have people send me artwork from prison. Many of them are musicians, some of them are their friends, but they also do art. And they send me the work and I sell it. And some of the money goes to them and some of the money goes to Die Jim Crow. So I gave Scaping Time, I gave them some of the pieces that I have.
Okay, now.
Sure. Welcome to Scaping Time, art from U.S. prisons. We are showcasing work that was created within prisons nationwide. We have a website, escapingtime.com.
Okay. How do you get those pieces from prison? What is the method?
Just shipped to me.
So it's easy for you to have access for these pieces of art made in prison?
It's easy to physically obtain them because all they do is just send them to me. But if you want to talk about what the artist has to deal with, they have different obstacles. So in some prisons, they have paint, they have paper mache, they can rip up paper and make masks. I have a few masks. But then in other prisons, it's just a paper and a pen. Or a very common thing that they do is they do it on a handkerchief, a napkin, a cloth napkin.
Do you get those pieces of art only from public prisons or also from private prisons?
The people that I work with just happen to be, coincidence, whatever it is, all from state prisons, so public prisons. No federal, I don't know anyone in the feds or in a private prison, no.
When I saw the event in the social network, I saw that you spelled the US with the symbol of the dollar. Can you explain what it means that for the common European people?
Sure. Well, first of all, I should say that I got that idea to do that from one of my friends in prison. So shout out to Leon Benson, that's his name. And he's doing a murder sentence. He's innocent though, and he's doing 60 years. Anyway, I think the reason he put it there and why I use it is because whether you're talking about private prisons that are privately funded and owned, or you're talking about federal or state prisons, they all are related to what they call the prison industrial complex in America. So with the private prisons, it's obvious because, you know, they're for profit, right? And then with the other prisons, you have a lot of industry within those prisons. So whether it's the food or the healthcare or the weapons or the security or the phone, it's all a business. And people are making money off of it. And you see the amount of prisons that there are in America. Between 1990 and 2005, a prison was built in America every 10 days. And in those prisons and jails and immigration detention centers, those are industries within themselves for sometimes an entire town. You go to a town in the middle of Indiana, right, where the population is 5,000, maybe 3,000 people work at the prison.
And then this project you are involved with, according to your words, we can say that it has a political connotation, or is it just a channel to showcase the art?
Oh, it's definitely both. Yeah, it's definitely both. There's so much to know about what's wrong with the U.S. prison system because there's so much that's wrong with it. And it's also a way to humanize people. I think a lot of people who have never been to prison or they don't know anybody in prison, they think people in prison are monsters, right? That's not true.
For sure.
It's a very important project because I was blessed to meet Fury, and he had been making a lot of moves on the project, but it's a way to give a voice to a population in America that hasn't had a voice.
I'm gonna give you some data, of course maybe you know it, but in Europe maybe our audience doesn't know it. About 1% of the population of the United States are in prison. About 25% of the population of the world are in prison in the United States. Nowadays, the States has more black people in prison than slaves in 1850. Do you think this data, the common American, the average American people know that? They are concerned about that, or it just work it on?
That's a good question, and it's one of the reasons why I'm doing the album, Die Jim Crow. I think that in New York, most people, I don't want to say most, but a lot of people do know about the prison system. I think that lately, in the past 5 years or so, it's kind of become a bit of a zeitgeist thing. In mass incarceration, people know about mass incarceration. They know about the book, The New Jim Crow. A lot of people know that. But then I think when you go to Middle America or other parts of America besides the big cities or New York City, yeah, there's probably a lot of ignorance as to what's going on. Absolutely. I think a lot of people don't know.
What is the rehab, what is the reinsertion in the American culture?
Yeah, that's a big question. I think that it's something that has to do with deeply rooted in American culture. And actually, since I don't have a really cohesive answer historically, because I think you need to look at history, maybe it has to do with religion, American religion, divide and conquer, us versus them, political thought, capitalism, whatever, what have you. We are a land that was founded upon a genocide. We killed, several million Native Americans to get this land. But the specific example that I want to give, actually I just thought of this while you were asking the question, is that you were talking about there's more black people in prison than there were slaves in 1850.
Yeah.
And I think that actually a lot of the reason that the American prison system is so punitive is because there are so many people of color in that system and people who are poor, right?
Yeah.
I think that America doesn't give a shit about poor people, hence capitalism, neoliberalism, whatever you want to call it. And that really started in the past 40 years when mass incarceration started to take off. In the 70s, it was a little bit more like Spain, where life meant you got 20 years or 25 years. And then you usually made parole after that. You got 25 to life, but you usually got out after, And then in the 80s, that's when you started to really see the sentences getting harder and harder and harder. And that's when a lot more people, especially people of color, started to get put in there. And we could talk for a while about those politics. I mean, you have Richard Nixon, who comes in during a time where there was a lot of unrest in America, Black Panthers, Martin Luther King is assassinated, the law and order movement, right? So he comes in talking about law and order, and he is the one who starts the war on drugs, really, talking about public enemy number one is drugs.
This is one area where we cannot have budget cuts because we must wage what I have called total war against public enemy number one in the United States, the problem of dangerous drugs.
And he's talking about organized crime and that kind of thing, right? So that laid the seeds for Ronald Reagan, who then comes in and uses the same, they called it the Southern strategy, because in that era, a lot of Democrats were actually Southerners. And the way that the Republicans appealed to the Democrats was by saying, we want to get tough on crime, we want law and order, we need to restore law and order. But that was kind of like a wink saying, let's lock up some black people. And they have ads, Nixon campaign ads that you can look at, and basically it explains this.
It is time for an honest look at the problem of order in the United States. Dissent is a necessary ingredient of change. But in a system of government that provides for peaceful change, there is no cause that justifies resort to violence. Let us recognize that the first civil right of every American is to be free from domestic violence. So I pledge to you, we shall have order in the United States.
And so then Reagan comes in and takes it up a notch, really, and starts talking about the war on drugs is like the biggest problem since blah, blah, blah. You know, Americans fall for it too. You have this all-out campaign against drugs, and a lot of the images you see on TV are like black people, pretty, you know, crackheads, crack babies, all these welfare queens, all this type of shit. So, yeah, I think the punish Americans, probably a part of Americans want to see black people put in prison, definitely, because there is still racism out there, as we all know.
Yeah, K-Son Smalls coming to you from New York City, Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, New York. Peace to Barcelona. And I gotta say, we do have the right to resist. Derecho de Resistencia. Peace.
You as American, how you can admit to live in a country that has death penalty, but has death penalty with support of an important part of population?
Yeah. And to be fair, the death penalty is starting to decline. It will probably not exist in 100 years in America, I think. We'll see. Not that that's like some great progress, right? Let's wait 100 years and maybe the death penalty will be gone. But how does that happen? I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of drawing a blank right now, but I'm sure there's like some kind of religious, some kind of like an eye for an eye kind of mentality that we have in America.
I'm talking with an artist, I'm not talking with a jurist. So, do you believe in artists like a way to change people's mind about these questions?
Mm-hmm. Yes. You want more?
Yeah, I want more.
That's why I am doing the project, because I think that so many times you have books, right, that are written by professors who have degrees and that kind of thing, and that's important, right? Like The New Jim Crow, Michelle Alexander, great book, very important book. If it wasn't for that book, I might not be doing the project. It certainly wouldn't be called Die Jim Crow, I think, if it weren't for that book. But I think that it's written by a professor, right? It's written by a woman. Yeah, she's a black woman and she's had a lot of experience with people in prison and she's great. But there's not a first-hand account coming right from the people who are living it. And I think that through visual art, yeah, but more so music, you feel that in such a raw way. I think music is raw energy. It's pure raw energy. It's not like a movie that gets edited. It's not a work of art that you labor over for months sometimes, painting and that kind of thing. Music to me is the most important way to do this. Yeah. And especially recording people in prison, because when you record people in prison, which I have, and I'm actually about to go back to the prison that I recorded at, you get just this really strong emotion, you know?
Yeah, what kind of music?
It's mostly traditionally African-American music, like blues, jazz, rap, R&B, soul, rock and roll, gospel, spirituals, that kind of thing. But there's gonna be some weird stuff on there. I won't say too much, but I definitely want to have a couple songs that sound more like African music, like West Africa, maybe South Africa. I love African music. So there will be some interesting stuff. And then what's really cool is that because I'm working with a lot of different generations, you know, some people are young, some people are in their 60s, right? So you get the old school taste, the old R&B, souls, a lot of what they like. And then you got guys who grew up listening to Tupac, you know? Yeah, and they even maybe a little bit of, I don't know, Nirvana, whatever, because it's the early 90s. So you have these really cool influences coming together. And then you have me, I love a lot of the music the guys and women that I work with in prison like. I love a lot of it. But I also really like stuff like Pink Floyd is a big influence because they're great at the concept album, right? So I'm telling these people who I'm working with, listen to The Wall, listen to a Roger Waters record. And yeah, I think that will make for something interesting.
What these people expect from this project? How do you feel about the image involved in this project?
God. they're really, really into it, you know? One quote that comes to mind, "This is the perfect opportunity to expose my white-hot anger," was a good one. And then just a lot of people who say, this is really gonna be something big, important. People need to hear this. I just did a class in a school in Brownsville, which is like a ghetto neighborhood in Brooklyn here, and it was all 8th graders, and so a lot of them have family members in prison, they know people in prison, and the reaction I got from these kids was so good, so positive, and they're saying, this is what should be on the radio. Because I played them some of the songs by the people in prison, and they said, we want to hear this.
Okay, Fury, do you want to talk with us about some of the stuff of your project, of your prison, whatever you want?
Sure. Let's see. I think that the album will probably be done in a couple years, so give it some time. It's a long process to do this, especially working with people in prison. I also would say that support is needed. diejimcrow.com is the website, and it's not only financial but also legal stuff. You know, there are a lot of people who are on my album who are innocent or wrongfully convicted. I could use help, whether you're maybe even in Spain, you know, maybe write a letter from Spain to America to a judge, something like that. Just contact me. My information is on the website. For me, art is important, but also activism is really important too. Freedom, you know, that should be the ultimate goal. It shouldn't just be about artwork from people in prison. It should be about getting them out of prison too. I hope that there is change in America. I hope that the prison system sees a giant change, and the world too. You know, it's not just about prison. There's a lot of people who live in mental prisons, outside, you know, prison, outside of prison. So, I'd say that's it. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's really cool that that you guys in Spain are listening and that you care. So, thank you.
Pues este es el testimonio de Fury Young. Mañana estaremos con él en la exhibición que hay de Scaping Time y especialmente también involucrados en el seguimiento de Jim Crow. Para ello pedimos la colaboración a través de los canales de comunicación que os vamos a ofrecer, porque bueno, sí, estamos en Estados Unidos, estamos en Nueva York, pero los problemas sociales son inherentes a la raza humana y desde luego inherentes al sistema capitalista que compartimos. So Fury, thanks for giving your time to us.
Yes,
Keep in touch. Nice to meet you, bro.
Definitely, it's a pleasure.
Okay.
It's cool.
I gotta be honest, this my confession. I ain't know what was gonna happen when I got arrested. Thought I was gonna be mistreated cause my skin complexion. Gotta get up out of here, that was my first impression. My first impression. My first impression.
My body and even that gold chain, but we were doomed from the start. Our upbringings world apart. Even though she was feeling this dude, my reflections was too dark, so her parents didn't approve. And so she pulled